Good evening. So we are doing the Q&A session. Today we are going to tackle questions related to Golok. So everything that you had wanted to understand, know, I will try to answer as many questions as I can today. So let us see. The first question is Goloka defined by an individual's own belief? Now, individual's own belief can be anything. We start believing in things in our world and we start trusting them. Take any object, any individual. What happens to us when we take up any object? The moment you pick up an object and you say that I believe in this object or in this person or thing, then that belief grows in you. And if a day comes where you don't trust that object or that person, that day everything falls away. We have heard about objects like this. Now let us take a small black stone. People can believe in that stone and say that this is Shaligram or this is my Ganesha. Anybody can have any kind of a belief. If they believe it's their Ganesha or it's a Linga, they can trust it fully and they will start believing in it. And whatever they think about that object, it comes to pass. Anything that you believe in, it comes to pass, they immediately attribute it to that object. They'll say it's because of this. Someone has a small image in their pocket. Maybe a small talisman. I'm sure you know the talismans that you get. Or even a lucky charm. We have lucky charms. So if I wear this particular t-shirt, it's a very lucky day for me. We transfer that luck onto that object. So we start believing in that object a lot. Suppose one day you leave that object at home and go. You'll immediately start feeling, oh, today is not a lucky day. Today is not a good day. I forgot that thing. So the belief comes in that object. I can put a painting in front of you and an abstract painting and I say, oh, this is Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh over here. Look at it. It's an abstract. You can't make out head nor tail. And the belief comes in. Please understand this, that the belief is not in that object, but the belief is in you. You empower yourself. You empower the God within you to believe in that object. And that object becomes real. Got it? Now this is as per the material worldly objects, things, photographs, images of gods or whatever that you can think of. If you have a child and if you start saying to the child, you can do better, you're capable, after some time the child starts thinking, yes, I can do this. And after a few months, you will find that the child is performing better and better. It is nothing but self-empowerment. And that is what happens. Now we are coming to this topic of Goloka. Is Goloka defined by an individual's own belief? First and foremost, whether you have belief in any God or no, that you have to question yourself. Do I believe in some God? If you don't believe in that superpower, then there is no belief in anything. Then you are either an atheist or an agnostic or whatever. Then I can't convince you. Whether there are heavens of different kinds? Yes, of course. But that again depends on whether you want to believe in it or not. So who is right in the spiritual domain? Are you right, or is the one who is a believer is right? It is entirely a matter of perspective for an individual. The one who is a non-believer can just trash that whole thing and get out of it and say, I don't believe in all this thing. But a person who believes in it will have a very firm conviction that there is something. We started from the belief and faith from the scriptures, isn't it? Our entire spiritual discourses are happening based on scriptures for the last so many years. Primarily, we need to know that there has to be 100% faith in the scriptures. Number 2, faith in your guru. If you have these two together, then whatever that is there in the scriptures is true. There is no question of, do I have a belief or do I not have a belief? I was checking up a couple of more scriptures recently. I was going through some of my old books that I have. These are scriptures, very, very ancient ones. And there is a clear mention in those scriptures also, which are not Indian for that matter. Let me assure you this much. They are not the Hindu scriptures, or what we call them as the Sanskrit scriptures or books. No. They come from different domains, different places in this world. There also there is a mention of whatever I am going to say. So this is the first answer, which says, is Goloka defined by an individual's own belief? No. It is the belief in the scriptures and the Guru and that entity called God. We believe in him, and that is true. So what is this Goloka? We will take on from there. Now Goloka is a realm. Yesterday we were doing various universes and realms, if you recollect yesterday. And I told you they are not in this physical domain. They are not qualified by the 5 elements like we have. We are having these 5 elements called air, water, earth, so on and so forth. It is not there in that. These particular realms are connected to the spiritual world. Goloka is a spiritual realm. It is connected to the spirit world. And the first thing is, it is the divine spirit. The body of a human being has 0 value. It is created by Mother Earth, what we call as nature. We are taking ingredients from here, the body is getting created from that. Tomorrow scientists will create bodies inside their laboratories. If you want to know how they are going to get created, I will give you a simple example. Last year, a company in Europe came up with creation of food from air. They just sucked in carbon dioxide, hydrogen, nitrogen, so on and so forth, and combined it to make food grade food from the air. That company has said that they will be selling worth $1 billion worth of food products. Now these food products are not coming from the fields or any such place. Think about it. It is not a processed thing which is coming from somewhere. They can create meat out of it. They can create vegetarian food out of it. Whatever you want, they can just combine it together to create these proteins and whatever other things that they require. And they are not using the natural material available outside. They are creating it in the laboratory and selling it to you. I will send you the link if you wish to see that. There is a company like that. This was discovered way back in time by NASA. How to create food from the atmosphere. Because remember, they are going in outer space and so on and so forth, and you can't carry food, so many packets of food from here. So can I produce food somewhere else? Well, maybe they can. So now think about it. If you can produce food from just the atmosphere itself, what makes you think that this body of yours cannot be made? So body is supplied by this Mother Earth or nature. We are not discussing nature over here. We are discussing the spirit soul. We call it the Jivatma. So this realm of Goloka is directly related to the Jivatma. Okay? Now, Goloka is the uppermost, the highest, the number one. Below that comes the number two, from where we get our world. The topmost realm is Goloka. The inhabitants of Goloka, Go, cow, Loka, world. The inhabitants of Goloka are Gopas and Gopis, with all the bovine creatures that you think of, right? Cows. It's called the cow world. Now, who is the super boss over there? He is called the Supreme Divine Consciousness. He is known as Sri Krishna. Now, Sri Krishna is a person. We have discussed this in the Bhagavad Gita also. What are the scriptures that tell you about this? Two of the main scriptures, one is the Bhagavad Gita, second one is the Bhagavatam. Then we have many other scriptures, the Brahma Puran, the Brahma Vaivarta Puran, you name it. There are so many Purans, so many Shastras where it is mentioned very, very clearly. The existence of the highest world, or should I call it the realm? The highest realm is called the Goloka. Now Goloka is one, Vrindavana is another. We normally club it together. No, it's a twin world. The Goloka, Vrindavana. Vrinda, Tulsi, okay, basil, Vana, forest. So it is more or less the forest of Tulsi, like you can say like that. But it is again a realm connected to the Lord. Sri Krishna is the one who runs this whole system. And every other world after that. From that comes the third world. It is called Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha, the boss is Vishnu, Mahavishnu. You know that. Then we have Kailasha, Brahmaloka, Indraloka, you name it, all the other lokas are down below. So I have given you just a gist of it, how whether you believe or not is left to you. But as your guru, I can definitely say your job is to trust and believe 100% in the scriptures and whatever that I am saying. This world exists. So we are taking up the second question. Those who reach the first divine unmanifest, do they have a choice to join the second divine unmanifest? So those who reach the first divine unmanifest, which is the Brahma, Brahman, Brahma, it's called the unmanifest world. Do you know where it is? No. It's after you have reached the state of enlightenment, you can dissolve in the Brahma, is what is mentioned. It is a place where you can completely get dissolved. You don't need to come back from there. You don't carry any bodies over there. No, there are 3 bodies. I don't have to repeat them. We have the food body, then we have the subtle body, and then the causal body. All these bodies have to be discarded when you reach the state of Brahma. So the question was, those who reach the first divine unmanifest, do they have a choice to join the second divine unmanifest? 100% you have a choice. It is left entirely to the one who has reached the state of enlightenment. That the person who has got self-realized or enlightened, or somebody who has gone beyond, you understand? Somebody who has reached the state of emancipation, freedom, all these put together. They have definitely a choice whether they want to go to this Golok Vrindavana or no. The Golok Vrindavana is open to these people also. The entry is only by means of this ticket called love and devotion. The moment I say love and devotion, it talks about objects, isn't it? It talks about a person, the Supreme Divine Person, the absolute perfect God that we talk about, the capital G, Sri Krishna himself, the Father in heaven, the Lord God, whatever name that you want to give him, you can give him. So he is the one that we all have to have our love and devotion for. The entry point is as simple as that. So you don't need to have some additional stamping to be done, okay? Already you are stamped for entry. Yes, you have to be in love and devotion to this divine. And what kind of a devotion are we talking about? It is called single-pointed devotion. This devotion has to be absolutely 100%. They cannot be 99%. No. What does this 100% devotion mean? We tried to do, recently what is called as the Narad Bhakti Sutra. You can look it up. Those who are interested in the Bhakti Marg can check up the Narad Bhakti Sutra, which we have posted online, and see those satsangs over there. However, here I can tell you that the devotion has to be absolutely 100%. That means it cannot have other people in it. You cannot say, oh, I want my wife also, I want my children also, I want my parents also, I want... No, you and the Lord. Now Goloka is defined in a very peculiar manner. It's a wonderful place where every inhabitant of this realm is called a gopi. A male gopi or a female gopika. Now Sri Krishna, the highest of the lords, created from his own being 2 entities. One is himself and the other one is called Radharani, sometimes mentioned as Radhika. Alright? So those who have devotion for Radha and Krishna, they will definitely have their darshan in this planet or in this realm. So Radharani is the highest deity which Krishna worships, by the way. And Radharani in turn worships Krishna. And both are together. So there is, we cannot say who is greater and who is not greater. Both are same. Okay? They come from the same being, the same person. Okay. So we will move on to the third question. This is a very interesting one. When Jivatma descends with Krishna from Goloka, might it take that Jiva lifetimes to return to him? So the question is, when Krishna comes to this human earth, he takes birth over here. So when Krishna takes birth on this earth, he comes with his coterie of people, the gopis. He comes with them. So when he comes with them, it's like a team, They have come for doing something on this planet Earth. So do all these gopis, after finishing their jobs, can they return in that lifetime, or do they need multiple lifetimes? Very interesting. Okay. Why do they want to come in the first place? Let us try to address this issue. Sri Krishna himself has said in the Bhagavad Puran, as well as in the various other scriptures, that in the last yuga, which is called the Kali Yuga, he is going to be permanently coming and going. That means he is always here. Always. See, which means that what he is in the Goloka is the primary manifestation. And here, there are secondary manifestations of his. He is the divine one who can manifest himself as the sun, or whatever name that you want to give him. As a manifestation, he is going to be permanently, literally like that. Now you answer this yourself. If you are a gopi who has come along with Krishna on this planet Earth, how many lifetimes would you want to be with him when he is always over here? So, the answer would be most probably, can I be with him always? Of course, at half time you will have to go. Half time is, okay, I just want to recoup myself for some, I have taken a holiday over here. Maybe I will go back and I'll come back again. It's like a return ticket. So the Gopikas, now I will explain a little bit about how these gopis and what are these Gopikas and what is this cow world or whatever that is. I will just give you a simple understanding of this. It's a realm. Golok, Vrindavana, I'm going to combine these two now, is a realm connected to Sri Krishna, Radharani, the gopis, the gopas, and their entire cow world. This is literally, it's like a big, massive place. And it has its own, yes, everything, whatever that it needs. The Lord stays over there, sporting with everybody over there. But it is always mentioned that Sri Krishna is not liked by his dear gopi, Radha, to sport with anybody else. So if some other gopi wants to come near, Radharani is always getting upset about it. Alright. So there are multiple stories about Sri Krishna and Radha which talk about how they behave. I'll give you one small story. And there is an avatar, one of the gopis over there. Her name was Sushila. Okay? Now, when her name was Sushila, she was dear to Sri Krishna. One day it so happened that she was sitting with Krishna, okay, on his lap. Okay, that's another thing which you should know. And when Radharani came to know about it, she was furious about it. She came running to that place. She's saying, "What is this I am hearing?" And then Sushila, what she does is she slinks away from there because you see, everybody wants to humor Radharani. Let me tell you this much. Radharani has to be humored by literally everybody. Okay? De facto head, you can say. De facto head. Now, the thing is, the moment she comes and she sees Sushila over there, she gets very upset, she gets very angry, and she says, all that kind of thing happens over there. And she curses her. And she says, "Get out from this place. I will not allow you in this Golok Vrindavana." Now, please understand one thing. You can't do that when Krishna is involved. Okay? So she tells her that you will be born on the earth. Now, the thing is it's very, very strange and funny. And then she looks towards Krishna. Krishna is no longer visible over there. He has disappeared. Now, you can't come and fire Krishna. You need to understand. He is the super boss of everything. So in Goloka, you can't come and give him a peace of mind, or he is the boss. So Radharani immediately feels very bad about it because he's become invisible. He is not to be seen over there. So she prays to him fervently and she says, "I'm very sorry. I should not have been shouting like this. I should not have done this." Okay, Krishna makes his appearance and he says, "See, you have to understand. All these are gopis, okay? They are all the female souls, which we call as Jivatmas, who are devoted to me. They are all dearest to me. I pray to them. And I give them equal importance. They are equal to me in stature. I myself consider myself as their level. You can't come and fire anybody. You can't talk like this to me." So, okay, now what do? So she is given a Vardhan. Sushila is given a Vardhan that she will be born as Brahma's daughter. So, Brahmaji, then, please understand, Brahmaji himself is not going to give birth. No, he creates all objects in this universe. So, Brahma's daughter, she is born as Brahma's daughter. And then a very interesting story follows. This story of Sushila comes in the form of an idea in the spiritual world of Goloka. Why is this idea so spiritual? I have to tell you. It is called Leela. In our world, it is called the Rasa. R-A-S-A, Rasa. Sri Krishna is doing the Rasa, which is mentioned in all the scriptures. It is the celestial kind of a dance. We call it a dance. It's not actually a dance, but interaction with every individual soul. Please understand this. Sri Krishna is the supreme soul, the Param Atma. The Paramatma's spirit is what we call as the Jivatma, spirit soul. He sports with every person. Every being on this planet Earth or wherever is nothing but his sport or play with every individual jiva. Did you get it? So we are not supposed to be having any animosity or anger against anybody. Simply because that is not a done thing. Those who come from this realm of the Goloka, they come with him. They spend their time over here. Did you get it? And then they go back along with him. Similar story is there of Tulsi. Now you see, Vrindavana. Tulsi also was very much in love with Krishna. A similar story happens when Radharani is around. She is also born on this earth. And she also has to take this form. Alright? Now, all these are stories. In the future, whenever I have the time, I will talk about these beautiful stories. So I just wanted to tell you that these different things which happen are nothing but a part of a leela, a play that happens. Radha himself is Krishna. Don't think that they are different. And the story where the person is sitting on his lap or doing whatever that they have to, even Ganga, she is at his feet. She hides below his feet when Radharani comes. I mean, think about it. Why is Radharani being told like that? Nothing. She is very much a part of Krishna. And this is called the Leela. An enactment of this beautiful play which happens there is replicated on this planet Earth, and then it evolves into a beautiful story. And this story continues. So think like that. Every action that happens in the Goloka has a culmination and a reaction here, so that the story continues. So I hope you understood about this realm. So I will stop over here for the Q&A session. All right. We will now take up the Das Bodh. Today it's a big chapter again. And it's the start of a new Dashaka. That is another set of 10 chapters. So we are doing Das Bodh, Samartha Ramdas's scriptures. This one is commentary on life. The chapter 1, Suffering at Birth. Now, I have given a small explanation about this earlier. Let us listen from what Samartha Ramdas is saying about what happens at birth. Sri Ram. Birth is the sprout of suffering. Birth is the ocean of sorrow. Birth is the mountain of fear which does not move. The moment you are born on this planet Earth, if you have taken up a body, immediately your fear starts. Immediately your suffering starts. Your sorrows begin at the birth itself. Birth is the treadmill of karma. Expiation of karma and creation of new karma happens at birth. Birth is the mine of sin. We start doing sins. Birth is ever new harassment by time. Birth is literally like a harassment by time. Those who are born say that I don't want to live in this world. I want to get out of this place. So many times in life people talk like this. So for them it's a harassment in time. Birth is the fruit of evil knowledge. Birth is the lotus of greed. Birth is the veil of illusion of ignorance. The moment you are born, you are exposed to this knowledge of the material world. Please remember this. Even in the Bible, there is a story about Adam and Eve. They had eternal life. And they were told that this is the Garden of Eden. You can be over here forever and ever and ever. But kindly do not eat from this tree. It's called the tree of life, by the way. It gives you life. And Eve eats it from there, and then she offers it to her husband, Adam. And then they are debarred from that place. They are sent away from Eden. And then happens what is called as creating the generations after generations. So it's a story, but you need to know that it is a time when all this started. It became the fruit of evil knowledge. Fruit of evil knowledge. It's a lotus of greed. I want more, I want more, I want more. Everything you want more. It's a veil of illusion of ignorance. Everything is a veil. It's an ignorance. You are embedded in this ignorance from birth itself. You really don't know who you are. You're completely forgotten your true self. Birth is the bondage of the soul. Birth is the cause of death. Birth is unnecessary entanglement. The moment you are born, you are bound. You are bound by this world. You are my son. You are my daughter. I am your father. This is your mother. That one is free. And now he came in this world, he got his father, he got his mother, he got his brothers, he got sister, he got relatives. It comes, buy one, get one free like that. You take one and everybody comes along with it. It's like he's carrying a big baggage. Imagine that small baby over there, now he's got baggage of every person over there. And all those monkeys are looking down at this monkey. And they go, tiki, 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 tiki. And they do. Just imagine how funny and stupid it sounds. When you think about the spiritual aspect of it, it's a bondage. To be born again and again is a painful journey. The moment you are born, you have to die also. So you have already put that tick over there. Okay, ready for death. Whenever you want it to happen. Tick. Birth is forgetting of happiness. The true happiness of the soul, spirit soul. You forget about it. Birth is a farm of worry. It's a farm of worry. Wow, you're going to grow worry over there. Birth is an extended development of passion. You become very passionate on this earth. You like to be involved in anything. Birth is the bad patch in the life of the soul. It is a bad patch. Birth is the stamp of imagination. Birth is the embrace of witch called false affection. It's a witch called false affection. I am your mummy. This is your daddy. We love you so much. You are our daughter. You are our son. This is called witch of false affection. This is all false. You can prove it to yourself. Do something against this person. If they say get married to this person, go and marry somebody else. The next day you are outcast. You go and do something which is not liked by the family, immediately you are thrown out. Anything in this world can be used against you. So what is this affection talking people speak of? Oh, I love my son, I love my daughter. It's all BS. I am not saying, the scriptures are saying, okay? And by the way, these scriptures are saying the truth, so we have to believe in them. Please remember that. It's a stamp of imagination, he says. We imagine ourselves. The moment you imagine yourself as born to that family, and a few years later you come to know that your family is not this. You are adopted at birth. Your parents who were there, they died. And that day, a big axe falls on your like that. And then all the happiness that you thought, these are my mummy, daddy, it's all gone out. I want to search for my real father and mother. Sir, they are already dead. Where are you going to search for? It's like thinking about, Superman. He comes from some other planet, God knows well. Elal. Okay, bang on the earth, and then he meets his mother and father on earth. What mother and father? Birth is a deception of Maya. Maya is a deceiver. We did that. Illusory power. Birth is the bravery of anger. Person gets angry from birth itself. For everything. Birth is the impediment in the way to liberation. You want to get liberated? Just now we were talking about liberation. You want to get liberated? Finished. You're born, no? Liberation is a little bit difficult. But, there is a big but. We will come to that but later on in other chapters. Birth is the attachment of the soul to the body. The soul gets attached to the body. Birth is a quality of egoism. Birth is forgetting of God. Man forgets God the moment he is born. He believes that his worldly parents are his parents. He forgets that he is the one connected to the Supreme God. God is the father, God is the mother. He forgets that. And then he starts believing in the material worldly father and mother. This is what happens. Birth is a quality of egoism. Birth is forgetting of God. Birth is liking for sense objects. Birth is a fetter of greed. Birth is a cucumber in the hand of time which he is eating. Very nice. It's a cucumber of time you are eating. I can think of rabbit. What's up, duck? Something like that, Birth is the bad days of calamity. Birth is evil time. Birth is the dirtiest of all evil. It is falling into hell. You may wonder, all your life, you have been given to understand that birth is such a wonderful thing. Your parents, your relatives, your friends, everybody in this world said, to be born on this earth is such a wonderful stuff. And then you may be, becoming a father or a mother, and you must be thinking, oh, I'm going to have a baby. Or your brother or sister or some person is going to have a baby. And here, Samartha Ramdas, the guru of Shivaji Maharaj, and an avatar, Samartha Ramdas. Remember, he is a Shivaji's avatar also. So, he is telling you that birth is such a pain in the whatever. Okay, this is what he is saying. You got to believe him. So, it is like falling into hell. If you see how the body is formed, you will find that there is nothing dirtier than the body because it is formed out of the menses. Okay. How can anything pure take place when the body is in a very statue of the flow of menses which is abhorred as very dirty? Even the woman is not going to like it. Okay. The flow of menses is not liked. But that is the thing which gives birth. How does anybody like that? It's a yucky thing, How can anything pure take place when the body is in the very statue of the... Okay. The menses in the womb becomes part of the fetus which later on takes birth as his body. I don't want to continue on that, no? Most of you may be disgusted with all these things people will say. But this is what Samartha Ramdas is saying. You need to listen. Okay. Outwardly, this body appears to be beautiful Internally, however, it's the tanner's sleeping vessel which is very dirty and one never likes to open it. I mean, just imagine. Just now you see a face, you see a body in front of you. Just cut it slightly and see all that parts which are going to be there inside. Oh my God. Have you ever seen an autopsy being done? Autopsy, autopsy. You must have seen some serials and all, when they do the cutting the body up. If it is your own, person who is there, I don't think you would want to be in that room. With all those livers, intestines, blood, this, that, all the gore over there. I really don't think you would love to be in that room when the autopsy is going on. Imagine, we love this body when it is alive, of course. When it is dead, you don't even want to touch it. Like that, far away. The body is a skeleton erected and tied around by arteries and veins and fitted with fat and flesh, and everywhere at its joints. Everywhere, just imagine you have one skeleton, and on that we are going to weave one vessels of blood and muscles and all that, and then we are going to make it into a nice body. Yo. The very name of the blood in Sanskrit is Ashuddha, which means unclean. Rakt. Okay? It's unclean. That is also in the body, and there are many ailments and pains residing in the body. It's a sack of night soil. Night soil means shit, by the way. Okay? Smeared inside and out, and a bag of urine emanating bad smell. Wow, this is the way in which you describe the body. After this, you will not even want to. There are worms in the intestine which are nothing but containers of bad smell, and the various skins are repulsive to look at, especially the inner organs. The head, which is the best part of the body, has nose full of mucus, and if there is pus in the ear, the smell is very obnoxious. Oh my God. There are excretions in the eye, in the nose, and the bad breath in the morning need not be described. The saliva, the sputum, the dirt, the bile, the mucus, and all the things which make the face dirty. But people call it by a simile of lotus or a moon. You are a moon-faced person. You are like a lotus. I mean, imagine calling your girlfriend. I mean, all the boys over here, I'm just saying, just imagine you're calling your girlfriend, your face is like a moon. And this is what happens. And even the girls, if they are thinking of these boys, oh my God. It sounds very strange. So the face is dirty like this, and in the bowels there is excreta. No proof is necessary of the evident fact. If good food is put into the belly, okay, sometimes it is vomited, sometimes turns into feces, and if one drinks the pure water of Ganga also, it turns into urine. This is interesting. I mean, just imagine you're drinking one whole bottle of Ganga water. Oh, I'm going to become very pure. It's going to come out as a urine. That's what he says. All right. So in short, the whole life of the body is full of these three things, namely excreta, urine and vomit. Okay. And the body grows in these only. There is no doubt about it. If these things which are excreta, urine and bilious vomit are not in the body, people will die. Even if a person may be a king or a pauper, these things are surely in this body. I think if Samartha Ramdas would have met, Gautam Buddha, Siddhartha, he would not even have got married. He would have told him, this is what you are. See, you should not wait for that 30 years, when you left to become Buddha. You should have left early only. What do you think? Is it that what Samartha Ramdas says like this to him? He's a guru. This is what may have happened. If we try to clean the body and make it free of these things, the body will die. So this is a physical system. The description applies to the healthy body. If it is sick, I doubt very much whether I can describe it. The child remains in the jail for 9 months in great pain, and in all the orifices of the body are closed in the womb. All the orifices, ear, nose, eyes, everything is closed for that small baby hanging upside down. Just imagine that. While a child is in the uterus, the various liquids in the body of the mother become hot because of hunger, and the little child's bone and flesh becomes as if boiled. The fetus in the beginning has no skin, and the mother has a perverted taste for things which are hot and bitter or sour and which really burn the body of the child. You get that, I want to eat this katta. Katta means sour stuff. I want to eat this and I want to eat that. And people love to eat all kinds of things. Have you seen a woman who is carrying? She becomes, because she eats. She says that I have to eat because my child has to get it. So if the child, which is just so much, so much. The child baby is only so much. I mean, it was so much and then it became so much and then it became so much only. And for that she has to eat so many kilos. I mean, just think about it. Yeah, you will say it is for the milk and other things. Or the milk will come later on, not now. After the child is born. Okay, this is a very strange chapter, okay? The fetus is a bundle of soft flesh, and around the uterus are the intestines of the mother. Whatever the mother eats becomes ready-made food in liquid form for the fetus, reaching it through the umbilical cord. Yes. The child in the womb is surrounded by many dirty things in the mother's body and is subjected to infection by germs. In this way, the child is suffering very acutely, and at that time he cries out to God, praying him to release him from it. So inside, just imagine the child is, his hands are like this. He must be thinking, God, please save me. I want to go away from here. Just you got to imagine that scene. You are a baby inside a womb and you are just thinking, 9 months of jail like this. I just want to get out from here. So they are all praying to God saying that, can you please release me? Okay. He says, oh God, if you release me from here, I will do my best of avoiding this birth and I will not come here again. I don't want this kind of a birth ever again. I pray to you, just give me this release. I don't want to be born also. Having suffered, he takes such a vow that the time of delivery comes and the mother starts crying and shouting out in pain. In the nose and the mouth of the child there is blood and flesh and it cannot even breathe because there is no scope at the time of birth. He's completely choking all over the place when he's coming out. The opening of the head is closed and the child becomes afraid and it starts to suffocate. The breath is impossible and the child is harassed. It cannot find the way out. At that time, the position of the child suddenly becomes complicated and people say, we have to cut the child, cut and bring it out. Then they operate and the hands and the feet or whatever limbs can be reached is cut. Maybe it's nose, mouth or stomach. Nowadays they do a different kind of an operation. But during the times of Samartha Ramdas, definitely, they didn't have all these other stuff, Sometimes when the child is cut, it is dead and the mother is also dead. The child itself dies, it has killed its mother. Such tremendous suffering is there in the womb. But if at all by good luck, the child finds way through. However, either there is shoulder presentation or the head is twisted. Sometimes, because the shoulders they get stuck up and the head is sometimes twisted. Something wrong goes on. From the narrow path, the midwife and the other induce the delivery by force and even the child might die. When the child dies, it forgets and the memory of all the past is also wiped out. Suppose the child dies, then all this memory of all this is also gone. It is said that while in the womb, the child says, Soham, I am that. And when it comes out, it says, Koham, who am I? First it is Soham, I am that, I am that, I am that, I am that. I am that divine being. Okay. And when he comes out, he says, who am I? Koham. So in this way, the child suffers very much in the mother's pregnancy. The child which is so miserable comes out by undergoing a lot of pain. But as soon as it comes out, it forgets that pain. It is very simply like this. It's you go through the torture and after that you forget the torture. Everybody goes through this and nobody remembers. Nobody remembers it. Our memories are erased. His senses are benumbed. He does not remember anything. By ignorance, there is a great illusion, and the child becomes happy. After they give him one tight slap, he starts crying, and after that, he'll start laughing. Okay? I mean, not immediately, but after some time. The body gets sick, it is subjected to pleasure and pain, and becomes caught in the net of Maya. Such is the pain in the womb of all creatures. We should therefore surrender ourselves to God. One who is a devotee of God is free from birth and becomes desireless only by knowledge and wisdom. You don't want to have this kind of a birth? I am sure after listening to this painful journey that we did from in this chapter and the real life, which you don't even remember what actually happened the 9 months in that jail. For whose pleasure was it? Who was the person who was taking this pleasure? The parents. They are the ones who created that baby. They do not understand the amount of pain that a person who is brought in this world goes through. This world is full of misery and sufferings. And the parents, when they give birth, they feel so happy with it. My baby, they say. Not realizing that you have brought somebody out in this world, that person is a miserable person, just like you are. One who is a devotee of God is free from birth and becomes desireless only by the knowledge and wisdom. In this way, I have described the suffering in the womb according to my ability, and I request the listeners to pay attention further. Thus, in the third Dashaka of Dasbodh, in the dialogue between the Guru and the disciple, the first chapter by name, Suffering at Birth, is completed here. So we have come to the end of this particular episode. I'll just take 2 more minutes of those who are joined in on the Google Hangout. Rest